The story of Christianity about a dead and resurrected Messiah does not fit with the Jewish background of what they were expecting when a Messiah was supposed to come. They were expecting a conqueror, someone who's going to defeat Rome.
Well, I would agree that some Jews were expecting that. And that's very obvious. If you look at Josephus, he mentions a bunch of failed messiahs, failed prophets that were supposed to do exactly that. But again, they failed. But still, Jews rallied behind them because there were some Jews that thought that. But to present that as a monolithic idea of Judaism, like as if Judaism was this one idea, and the one idea they had about the Messiah was a military Messiah that was going to come and fuck up the Romans. That's just false. And we know that to be false because there are several different Jewish sects that were going around in the first century, either BCE or CE. You had multiple ones going around claiming different things about the Messiah. If you look at the Nag Hammadi library, you'll see that various different ideas about Jesus were going around at the time. And even once the Gospels were starting to be written, you still had a wide variety of ideas about Jesus. I mean, you had whole infancy Gospels that were written where, Jesus peed on some dirt, made some mud birds, and then killed a kid. You have all these various ideas about the Messiah, but more importantly, saying that they weren't expecting anything other than a military Messiah just shows you're either trying to hide information from your audience or you don't know about the information.
You set me up.
No, I didn't set you up.
You lied to me.
No, I'm trying to help you. Let me help you.
I would tend to lean towards ignorance if Michael Jones hadn't already done a whole lot of research into this area. So, I mean, I know that he knows about other sects of Jews as well as multiple sects of Christians that were going around. So to suggest that a dying and rising Messiah wasn't in the background information of Christianity is just ridiculous.
And instead they got somebody who preached that we were all sinners, that even many of the Jews had become sons of Satan, which does not fit with that at all, and that he was going to die for their sins and then rise, and that would prove he's going to be the Messiah. It's completely an anomaly in terms of the background.
I mean, has Michael Jones read the Old Testament? I mean, I'm honestly asking here. I'm not trying to be a dick, although I may be coming off as a dick. I get it. But I don't know if he's actually read the Old Testament, because at several points during the Old Testament, while they didn't have a concept of Satan or anything like that, God definitely got pissed off at the Israelites for worshiping other deities, for them being bad people. In the Old Testament, you have this concept of the remnant, and that's the leftover, Israelites after God has killed off all of the ones that aren't, bowing down to him, or that are violating his laws and everything like that. People that are not going to fall in line with him. I don't think that characterizing some of the Jews as being the quote-unquote sons of Satan, which I'm not sure where he's getting that from, but let's just assume that he knows what he's talking about here. I really don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility for the Jewish beliefs. And I mean, if you want to talk about what Jewish beliefs were, and how diverse they could be, as if to say, oh, no, there's no Jews that would believe any of this. For one, you can't actually say that because we don't have absolute information about all of the beliefs of the Jews going around in the first century BCE or the first century CE. So we can't say that they would not have believed it, especially considering the content of the Old Testament. But also, if you just look at the different sects of Jews that were going around, you had the more strict Orthodox, which was, I guess, more the mainstream idea that was running in Jewish theology at the time. You have that group, but then you have other group like the Essenes and these other various groups that had beliefs that were wildly different than the Orthodox beliefs of Jews. To suggest that it would be crazy for a Jew to believe these things, considering all of this information, I don't see how he can actually defend that position. Because there's no way that he can say they will not believe this, or they categorically did not believe, no Jew believed this. I do believe that what he's talking about here is that no Orthodox Jews would have believed it. So, I mean, there's that. But I don't think that you should take the orthodox or the mainstream idea of Jews and apply that to every single Jew that existed, which I think is the implication that Michael Jones is making. Also, a dying and rising Messiah is not a complete anomaly considering the background of everything. For one thing, you had Jews that were definitely looking to the Old Testament scriptures in order to reinterpret them and give them a more messianic spin. Why else would you have the Gospels refer back to the Old Testament when they're talking about how Jesus was supposed to rise and or die and rise again? Not only that, but also, why would the Jews then later develop, like after Christianity came and went, why would the Jews then go back and reorganize their thoughts on who the Messiah was supposed to be and come up with their current two Messiah hypothesis? Which, what the two Messiah hypothesis is that there's one Messiah that's going to come to die, and then there's another Messiah that will come and resurrect the Messiah that died, and they will provide salvation to all the Jews. And so why would Jews that apparently had direct contact with the Christian story then later develop an interpretation of Jewish theology that would absolve Christian theology? I mean, they've always painted the Jews as being very much anti-Christian in the Gospels, even just in general in the first century and as Christianity was developing. Why is it that they would later develop this hypothesis about the Jewish Messiah that seems to be pretty much the same thing as what Christianity's saying, except Christianity has merged those two concepts? And if you're looking for evidence that the Jews were, reinterpreting Old Testament scriptures so that they can know something about the Messiah that has yet to come, all you have to do is look at Philo of Alexandria. He was interpreting Old Testament information to be about his Logos character, who was supposed to be the Messiah of the Jewish people. So it seems to me like saying that the background information of Judaism is not coherent with Christian theology. I feel like that's just totally ignoring all of the developments of the Jewish community that we know about up until Christianity started making a lot of waves. Knowing that is crucial, and not bringing that up, not talking about it, makes it look like Jones is either ignorant of it or trying to hide it, or maybe he thinks it's inconsequential. Regardless of the reason why he's not bringing any of this up, I feel like anybody that is listening to Michael Jones in this particular video should definitely press X to doubt, because he's obviously doing a lot of things wrong. One, he's painting the Jewish ideas monolithically as being about this military Messiah. It wasn't. Two, he's saying that the Jews were not expecting a dying and rising Messiah, so why would Christianity ever pop up if, they weren't expecting that? When in reality, it turns out that the Jews were expecting a similar dying and rising Messiah, and they definitely wouldn't have developed that after Christianity formed, and failed to at least handle how Jesus was not the dying and rising Messiah in their own theology. It seems to me like Michael Jones is just wrong on a lot of different aspects here.